Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, eCommerce Imagery Best Practices. Today's webinar will be presented by Jeff Prystajko, who is a senior designer here at accesso.
As Katie mentioned, my name is Jeff Prystajko, and I've been with the company in our Lake Mary, Florida office for just shy of 3 years now. I've also had a career doing design within the amusement and attractions industry for nearly 15 years. Before we dive into today's topic, I just want to spend a few minutes giving you some background on accesso, who we are and what we do. At accesso, we believe that technology has the power to redefine the guest experience. Everything we do starts with thinking about the guest experience first, and that allows us to help simplify operations, improve guest satisfaction, and drive growth for our clients. Yay, says that woman in the crowd. So as you can see, from theme parks to performing arts, zoos, festivals, and more, our products and services support some of the top attractions in the world. Whether it be food and beverage, point of sale, virtual line reservations, ticketing, or guest management, our solutions help streamline and simplify your operations across a wide variety of venues. And shameless plug, we also have a super talented team of designers to ensure all of those products are user-friendly and easy to work with. When it comes to solutions, we provide the technology. This lets our clients focus on what they do best, provide outstanding experiences for guests. We think about these solutions in 4 different sets here. The first is accesso Low Queue, which provides virtual queuing solutions to attractions around the globe. You can see our QBand, QSmart, and QBot offerings, as well as the newest member of the family, the accesso Prism Band. The second category is ticketing. This includes our accesso Showware solution, which is a fully hosted box office and online ticketing solution, our robust accesso Seriousware point of sale solutions, and our award-winning accesso Passport e-commerce platform. The third category is distribution. Last year, we acquired a company called Ingresso, which is essentially a global distribution system for venues. In other words, this allows clients to reach prospective customers through more avenues than ever before. And finally, our newest product, the Experience Engine, or TE2, helps marketers utilize guest data to deliver more personalized and targeted interactions. Together, these all form the accesso ecosystem, complementing one another and going far beyond what any one of these single units ever could do independently. I just want to say, I really seek out and value innovation myself, and I'm proud that accesso has a huge focus on research and development, which continues to set us apart. Last year, accesso was able to invest over $20 million directly back into R&D across all of our platforms, an amount I'm told is equivalent to some of our competitors' entire annual revenues. But the reason we invest so heavily in our products is because our industry demands it. Our clients benefit from it, and we know it makes a positive difference in the guest experience. Innovation is one of our core company values, and it's part of our commitment to our clients that our software continues to evolve to meet new demands. One of our differentiators is that a large percentage of our employees have had careers spanning all aspects of the entertainment and attractions industries. A number of us, myself included, have worked as ride hosts and in admissions, or any number of other frontline or back of house positions. We understand the business, and our team is always thinking about what could revolutionize the market and make our clients' businesses better. And finally, we consider our partners as vital members of our team. So if you have any ideas, please share them with us or through your CSM. Okay, so we're here to talk about imagery best practices in your online stores. I'm going to show a bunch of examples on what to do and what not to do. But don't fear if you're not the person doing the actual design. I'm guessing most of you probably aren't. You also don't have to worry that I'm going to pick an example from your store. We're a judgment-free zone here. Everything you'll see is an original custom creation. And with each slide, I'll be discussing design principles that will aid in your understanding of how imagery can engage and entice, and in the end, bring in more conversions and revenue. It also doesn't matter if you're not an existing client using our e-commerce platforms. The principles I'll be going over can apply almost anywhere. Now, I may also throw in a few details of the more technical variety in here and there, but in the end, I think a little knowledge can go a long way. But more than some of those technical aspects though, psychology plays a predominant role in what we're doing. Some fun facts about how and what we perceive. Now, our brain can process images not 60 times faster than text, not 600 times, not 6,000 times, but a whopping 60,000 times faster. In fact, it only takes about 13 milliseconds to process and respond to an image. And only 1 in 6 people can read things word for word. And nearly every customer will be driven towards making a purchase via the visuals presented in a store. Even for something as seemingly benign as a banner or product photo, every image we display is directly communicating a message or augmenting other messages we're trying to promote. Now we know the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when we're dealing with e-commerce, we're dealing with a race against time. A shopper only has so much patience, and thus we want to communicate our product as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, if we can do that with clear imagery and fewer words, the shopping journey will be a much more positive experience. Now, there's lots more stats I could cite, but when you add this all up, the conclusion is simple. We'll see better results when we focus on creating well-crafted, meaningful visuals. And let's look at some examples. We'll start off with one of the most important, making sure we're creating an emotional impact. Our end goal is certainly to get a purchase, but a parallel goal is to ensure we're telling the story of our brand. For most, or all of us, our brand is fun. We want to see that people are having the best day with their friends and families. Now, does this photo of a couple of river ride rafts paint that picture? Shows the attraction, sure, but where's the connection? Let's look at another. Here, we see a close-up of a group of people laughing and screaming. This speaks volumes more and effectively communicates what you're trying to sell. Let's say this was a season pass product image for a group of 4. People will subconsciously equate that product with the prediction that they're going to get a season's worth of fun and awesome visits. So to recap, you will forge a stronger and more loyal connection with customers with imagery that clearly tells your story. Now on the topic of imagery, take a look at this hot dog. Looks like it may have been shot right in the kitchen, probably with someone's mobile phone camera. I would say that this does not exactly whet my appetite, actually. I think I may have lost it a little bit. But let's contrast that with this image of a hot dog. But in this case, one likely shot in studio lighting conditions, perhaps with a professional camera or a high-end mobile phone camera, where both the foreground and the background are carefully crafted. Now, even though I won't eat this because I don't like mustard, I'm still much more enticed by this image because if we look at these side by side, there is a clear difference of quality and composition in the two images. Some things to think about. While we can't always hire professional photographers or shoot in studio conditions, in some instances, it may be worth the investment, especially if we're trying to sell a premium product or one with a high potential for revenue and profit. In the event you need to go the amateur route, find people on staff who tend to take great looking photos. Chances are they'll have some decent photography tools and knowledge to create some shots. And finally, while stock imagery is increasingly an affordable option with an abundance of low-cost photography available, customers will still gravitate towards authentic imagery that incorporates and includes your products and branding. Another trend I sometimes see is when an overzealous designer tries to jam-pack multiple photos and text and graphic elements all into one product image. Now, while our mind is wired to quickly process imagery, we can also get hung up when there's too much going on for us to quickly decode. Right now, I'm overloaded with a plethora of burgers and fries and pizza and a season pass card and a title, and it's too much. So let's simplify. We remove the clutter. And all we have is a title and an image that clearly speaks food. My eye is no longer taking the time to scan each and every one of these food items from the previous image, but in the end, I get the same product communication, just simpler and in less time. Next, different images for similar products. One pattern I tend to observe often is applying a consistent motif across multiple product images. In this instance, we're offering a 1 and a 2-day ticket, and chances are these will likely appear side by side in the storefront, potentially, along with several other similar options. And that repetitive background, while nice by itself, will combine to create a grid of visually indistinct graphics, thereby lessening their impact. A better solution may be to utilize a variety of images. This creates more discrete sections of the store to focus on at its time and offers more ways to entice the user. We're not really doing anything to speed up or slow down readability, but something as simple as a background image or a color change helps to break up the monotony and make each of your unique products stand out. Here's a simple one, but I wouldn't include it if I hadn't seen several examples in use. I've talked quite a bit so far about the need to use photography and messaging to connect with one's brand. But one area where things can go too far is incorporating one's logo into a product image. Now, if someone went to your website, surfed around for a few minutes, clicked on the Buy Tickets button, and is browsing the store, chances are they know what the venue's name is. Going back to the simplicity is better rule, though, avoid using your brand logo in product imagery. You want to use that limited amount of space you have to promote your message, highlight other imagery, and leave the logo to other prominent spaces in your online experience. Now, the exception would be if you're, say, a multi-venue location, such as a combination theme park and water park, and there's a need to clearly identify one from the other. Then individual logos definitely help to differentiate those. Next up, too much text in the graphic. There will be many times we'll need to include a few words here and there to help describe a product, but recall what I said earlier. It takes longer to process text, and the more there is, the more will greatly slow down the buying experience. On this example, having 3 lines of bullet points is a really ineffective use of space. Not only that, but we also need to be conscious of people with blindness and other accessibility factors. And this could likely affect about 10% of your audience, and the full effect of the image content may not even be conveyed properly. Instead, keep the amount of text that appears to a minimum, just a few words, mostly headline type material. You can place content in other places like a product description if more detail is required. And if all else fails, yet you feel a lot of info absolutely needs to be conveyed, it may be time to investigate other ways of presenting products and associated details. Another point when it comes to text is how legible it appears on screens, in particular, mobile devices. As I'm sure many of you know, likely half or more of your website and store traffic is coming from a mobile device. And while many of us have what are essentially huge mini tablets in our pockets, a significant percentage still use phones that are 4 or 5 years old or even older. These devices tend to have smaller screens that may not even be more than 2 inches wide. In that case, that small text you see underneath Express Lane will be either extremely difficult, if not impossible to read. So the solution is simple. Just don't include it. Add the information somewhere else where the user can properly digest it and focus the graphic on, once again, simplicity. I have a few additional examples relating to text, and the first has to do with font weights. We're all familiar with regular versus bold fonts, but in the design world, a particular typeface can have a wide range of thicknesses, or what we call weight. A lot of trendy and modern designs today will use thin, sleek weights. It's stylish and different, especially since we have a lot of high-density displays and HD and 4K TVs. It makes the text more legible than ever before. That said, I would urge caution. Trendy does not necessarily equate with good design when it comes to selling something. Here, we have text that is so thin, it may only look good on certain screens and to certain groups of people. Again, those with poor eyesight might find this unreadable. For best results, stick with thin fonts only when they'll be shown at a significantly large enough size, and use these heavier and bolder font weights whenever legibility may be a concern. Next, let's talk about font categories. There's a lot of classifications out there you may have heard of, including slab and script and black letter and decorative. But the two most important to think about are serif and sans-serif. Now, serif font, put simply, has tiny hooks at the end of letters and other characters. A sans-serif font has no hooks. Serif fonts have a variety of strengths, including readability in print when there are lengthy passages of text, as well as on screens when presented in a large size, like a headline. But research has shown, however, that readability tends to suffer on a screen when the text is small. Figure that serifs add to the visual complexity of a character, and we're trying to display those in a pixel-by-pixel grid on a screen. It can cause unwanted artifacts and appearances. Instead, we just want to focus on sans-serif typefaces, unless absolutely necessary for your brand. Now, if you do need to use serif fonts, again, try to enlarge text as much as possible to increase that legibility. Now, for all the people who have gone overboard with overstyling text, this slide is for you. Now, software like Photoshop and even applications like Word and PowerPoint makes it really easy to create text with outlines that also have drop shadows, that also have gradient colors, that also have bezels, and the list just goes on. So unless done really, really, really well and with careful execution, the combination of these effects can often instantly make a graphic look amateurish and unprofessional. To reiterate the simplicity argument we keep coming back to, less is more. Now, our message is still there, and we use minimal text effects, just a basic color outline, to add contrast and readability against the background. Next, color. The use of color can be incredibly important when designing graphics, particularly when it comes to the application of contrast. How distinct will text or other graphics be against backgrounds and other elements? For this, we always have to consider people with vision ailments. Color blindness affects 4 to 5% of our audience, while other conditions may cause normally sharp edges to become blurred. Here, that white all-day cabana graphic is positioned above a bright yellow background, making any readability potentially difficult. The orange text is easier to see, but some audience may still struggle. In the corrected version, we're going to apply a much darker palette to the graphic and text to ensure there is plenty of contrast. And like in the previous example, one can use some limited text effects if needed to aid in creating additional contrast. This one should hopefully be self-explanatory, but if you're including a graphic that clearly labels what it is, like the season pass that says season pass, we don't need an additional banner or text somewhere labeling it too. And in the corrected version, we're able to enlarge the pass graphic and maximize our available real estate. Well, I can't speak for all e-commerce platforms, but some will automatically add graphic or text overlays to your images. Some will even vary what's added depending on whether you're viewing from desktop or mobile device, amongst other factors. And depending on the size and shape, this could greatly affect how you can design your images. In most cases, you'll have a template or guidelines to use what define the, quote, safe zone, or an area that will always display and never be covered up. Here you see how the platform's overlay of the price and buy now button encroaches on the text beneath. But once we know the safe zone and can design around that, however, we can position things more appropriately. Another common feature of most e-commerce platforms is that CTA, or call to action buttons, are a color not often found elsewhere in the store palette. And this ensures that those buttons stand out and are easy to find. Here you can see that the store has chosen a green color for the Buy Now button. While the rest of the store isn't visible here, The green used would not be utilized for any other unimportant elements. The product image used, however, uses a bright green that reduces the contrast and diminishes the effectiveness of the Buy Now button. And given the importance of people clicking on our CTA buttons, it is imperative that we be mindful of those colors. So here, the background was replaced with an orange hue. In the end, that will help refocus the usage of green in this example as our primary color of action. Finally, a discussion about creating graphics wouldn't be complete without a few technical details about saving those graphics. And we've all seen and heard about the variety of file formats available, including JPEG, GIF, and PNG. But what are they and when do we use them? Now, the biggest difference between file formats is how they compress data. In these examples, we have an illustration and a graphic that is primarily a solid color. These have lots of pixels that are identical to one another. As you go left to right, one row of pixels at a time, each color has few, if any, changes. And this is perfect for a PNG or GIF file format because they use something called lossless compression, meaning no data is lost on output. The algorithm counts a pixel of one color and then how many times in a row it appears. Very efficient. Now there's lots of other differences and options, but for simple in appearance graphics, a PNG or GIF tends to work best. Now a photograph or a gradient, however, will often have subtle or drastic changes from pixel to pixel. In that case, we need to use a form of compression called lossy, meaning some data is lost from the original file to the newly saved version. The best example of a lossy format is JPEG, and this should be the format of choice for any complex image. One feature you can use to your advantage when saving is to adjust the compression amounts and preview how it'll look. Of course, a tiny bit of compression will result in no noticeable degradation, but may incur large file sizes. Whereas a higher amount of compression will decrease file size, but may result in unwanted visual artifacts and a blurred or blocky appearance. The trick is to tweak until you find a sweet spot that is optimized for both file size and clarity. And with that, even if you're not the main person responsible for directly creating these images, you are now armed with the knowledge to give critical and useful feedback to ensure your store imagery is the best it can be. So, spend some time after this webinar to look through your own e-commerce stores. Take a look at the imagery that's there and ask yourself if what you see aligns with some of the principles we discussed today, or is there room for improvement? And if you do need to make adjustments, give yourself and your design team the time and the resources to create imagery that excites and resonates with your customers. I'll finish up by reiterating our core principles. Connect with people whenever possible. Tell a story and make sure that story aligns with your product and your brand. Use high quality images. It can make a big difference in how customers perceive your products. And finally, always, always, always strive for simplicity. Less is more. And this is guaranteed to speed users' journey through the store and improve your conversion rates. So at this time, we'd like to open the floor to any questions. Katie, do we have any questions that have been submitted?
Thank you, Jeff. Our first question is about the CTA buttons. So it sounds like this person has an e-commerce store that does not have CTA buttons on images, but they're next to the images. In that case, is it still important to use different colors?
Absolutely. That CTA button really just needs to stand out on its own. The key is if you're looking at the page, that Buy Now button or Purchase Now should be bright, bold, and you want to click on that. You want to make sure it's easy to find because that's going to, again, speed people's journey through that buying experience. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, should I look to change the photos and colors on my e-commerce store periodically to keep customers engaged?
That's a good question. I would say, we have that answer that we always love. It depends. And I think a lot of it depends on looking at your analytics, seeing how frequent people come to your store. Now, certainly assembling all of these images, especially if you have a lot of products and a lot of things to work with on your store, it can take a lot of time. So you don't necessarily want to or spend the time and resources to continually keep creating things over and over again. But I would say, if people are just coming to your site maybe once or twice a year, you probably don't have to spend a lot of time and resources changing things. I would say, though, if you have maybe seasonal events, maybe you have things going on around Halloween or around Christmas, what have you, those are the times that you may want to adjust some of those images to, match the rest of your site. If you start advertising some different events and things like that, that all helps tie things together and make that whole store experience more seamless. I would also say, for attractions and venues where maybe you're debuting a brand new attraction, something that's really exciting that you are trying to market elsewhere on the site, that would be a reason to update some of that store imagery to make sure that, again, you're hitting people, you're hitting your audience with the things that you want to make sure that they realize is there and is going to get them excited to come and visit.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. Our next question is, do you have any specific programs that you recommend for creating product images?
I would say the standard tends to be Photoshop, especially if we're talking about photography and all of the other different things that we're incorporating into some of these images. We start with the photos, we add in some text. I think that tends to be the de facto industry tool. Now, there are some similar low-cost options out there that do a lot of what Photoshop can do. But a lot of it just happens to be, if there's a tool that you're most comfortable with, typically, as long as it's able to export, especially some of those things that I talked about with different file sizes and making sure that things are optimized for the store, that use whatever tool works best for you, I think is probably the key adage. I know some people will use Illustrator, some people will use InDesign. Whatever works best for you and you're most comfortable with, I think that's going to be the tool that you're going to use to create the best possible product with.
All right, perfect. Our next question is, does accesso have templates to share for graphics such as PSD, PDF, or AI?
We do have, again, it sometimes depends on the particular store and the particular application. But for some of our different products and some of our different locations of graphics within our stores, we do provide some templates to help guide that process, absolutely.
All right, wonderful. All right, our next question is, do you offer any type of e-commerce site review to let us know where we can improve?
Absolutely. Both myself and Jen, who is one of my co-designers here, from time to time, we will take the time to look through a store, put together some different suggestions, things that we see that can be improved. And I think that's just a great way to have another set of eyes that normally don't look at your store day by day to see what's out there. So we are definitely happy to do that.
Wonderful. Okay, well, it looks like we have one more question, unless any others come as we are dealing with this question. But the question is, do you have any suggestions on where I can find high quality images?
Sure. A lot of it can just be as simple as searching for stock imagery. There's a plethora of stock imagery sites available. You have iStock Photo, Fotolia. I know there's a bunch that are really inexpensive or free. So you can just do a search on Google for free stock images. That will help with that process. I've had some success finding some really good things there. Not as much as some of the paid options. Some of the paid options will sometimes require people to buy a subscription, or you have to buy in bulk. So that can be, you may find the perfect image and then discover, oh, well, I have to buy 10 more. So that can be disappointing. But there's always plenty of different options available out there. But again, going back to what I said, you know, stock imagery is great if you have no other options, but really, I've seen much more success when you show your venue, you show your attraction, you show people who are there, who are having fun, who are excited to be there. That, I think, again, goes back to the whole connecting with your brand, connecting with, you know, telling a story. So stock imagery, lots of options out there, but if you can, go the photography route and make something custom and bespoke to you.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your insights with us. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar, E-commerce Imagery Best Practices. If we didn't have a chance to address your question, which it does look like we got to everyone here, we would follow up with you individually. But if you do have any other questions, or if you would like to learn more about our accesso solutions, please contact sales@accesso.com. We will be sending out a link to view this recording within the next day. And on behalf of Jeff and everyone here at Accesso, thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.